This is Going to Get Loud, the working musician's ultimate guide to striking a new path through today's music industry. With your host, Paul Nicholas.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to It's Going to Get Loud. We've got Mr. Scott Robertson here, another amazing EnterTalk host from May the Best Brand Win. Scott, thanks for being on the show today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Paul. Looking forward to it.
And so Scott is going to give us a crash course today on branding. Now, I know a lot of emerging artists out there find that as a scary word or something that they're not too sure what it means. Scott's going to give us some clarity and is going to help us get some concrete steps and some action items, some things that we can do at the end of the show to help get our bands, our music, our brand out there. So, Scott, tell us a little bit first about your background in marketing, PR, branding, all that kind of thing.
Sure, absolutely. Well, let's see. So, I guess before I was anything, I was a musician. Ever since I was about 14 years old, I, started playing bass and rocking out in my high school band. And then, I wanted to be a professional musician. However, my parents decided not to fund the musician path. And so I went the safe way into advertising and marketing, and they basically did fund that. So hey, yay for parents that will pay for that. So I went to school at the University of Missouri Columbia School of Journalism. Focused on advertising and marketing, and then came out of there. And I was going to be a journalist at that point, and I just couldn't find any journalists that just didn't completely hate their lives. So I went into the marketing. I went into the marketing side of everything, and been here ever since. Worked for a lot of big companies. I was the director of marketing and communications for NAMM. I helped produce a NAMM show with a team of folks over there, for a lot of years, and then my company, Robertson does strategic public relations, branding, and marketing for music companies, tech companies, personalities, that kind of thing. And it's been in existence for just about 5 years now. So I've been doing that for the last 5 years.
Yeah, awesome. And it was actually great to see you out there at NAMM a couple of weeks ago. So
yeah.
Quite a bit of activity. I'm glad you got to take a few minutes to chat with us. Now, let's dive right in and talk a little bit about branding in and of itself. Tell the artists out there what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a lot of people get branding wrong because they think of it immediately like graphics, like the logo of the band, for example, and that's branding. And that's a part of branding. But branding, the reason that branding is so tough is it's everything. It's like, how our bodies are made up of every single, molecule of food that we consume, right? You ever meet somebody that's on a diet and they say, I'm on a diet right now, but I'm going to eat this piece of cheesecake, but it doesn't count. It's like, well, it's like your body counts it. You don't have the ability. Everything counts.
Or if you're in a band, that bottle of Jack Daniels doesn't count. So
that's right, exactly. I'm on a diet, but this whole bottle of Jack, we're not going to count that. Nor are we going to count this meth. No, I'm just kidding. So, basically, the first rule of branding is that it's everything. Everything counts. It's every, fan letter that you answer. It's every interaction that any member of the band has. It is the logo. It's the name of the record. It's the producers that you work with. It's the composite image of everything that, you, as an artist or band, is trying to put out there. The term actually comes from a soap company. It was a hypothesis that Procter & Gamble thought that they could prove, and they said, we believe that we can attach human emotions to soap. And no one believed that it was possible. People said, well, soap is soap, man. It's just, it cleans. It's fine, whatever. They said, no. We believe we can get people to feel things, feel real human emotions about soap. And we believe that we can differentiate brands of soap that are chemically no different from each other just by being able to create sort of a persona for soap. And they were pretty much laughed out of the room when they proposed it. But of course, they basically invented not only branding as we know it today, but almost every term in the branding lexicon sort of comes from Procter and Gamble. So you got to kind of give credit where credit's due. So what I always tell my clients is, it's about emotion. If you say branding, the next word out of your mouth needs to be emotion. And I think a lot of people get that wrong because they focus branding on, let's say you're focused branding on, graphics, and it's your logo. Well, is your logo going to, evoke an emotion? Maybe. It's possible. But chances are you're going to need more than that. You're going to need more than that to create an emotion. I think that bands and artists are in a great position in terms of branding because so much of what we do in music, is about emotion anyway. So you're already sort of halfway there. And I always encourage my clients we look for what I call the brand core. And that's usually a core emotion that we're trying to, get the audience to connect with. And it's all sort of about, their emotional ride. And that's how you're going to, win people over. Like when you mention a band, most people will get a feeling, that usually, coincides with something that happened in their life. If you say Kiss, to people of a certain age, they get a feeling when you say that, and it's basically their journey and their sort of ride that, Kiss has kind of taken them on. So that's really what branding means in a nutshell. Especially for bands, bands out there, that word emotion has got to come pretty quick. And again, the everything counts rule is really, really important. I think a lot of people get that wrong and they say, well, we're going to do, a fantastic job of marketing, but then we're going to, either not treat our fans well, or we're going to show up at the show late, or we're going to do all these kind of things. And then that affects the brand as well. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, that's absolutely exactly what we're looking for. And I think that to kind of tie it all together for the bands out there, essentially what Scott is saying is that the brand is you. Do you think that's fair to say?
It is.
I mean, if you are your art and you are your music and your music is you, then your brand is you, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes people, and sometimes it's good, especially, when you get 4 or 5 folks together, it's like, what does that maybe it's not, the guitarist would have a separate individual brand, themselves. But when you come together as that group, it's, it's that thing. It's like all the members of the Foo Fighters play with other bands, but when they come together as the Foo Fighters, that's a feeling that they're trying to create with that band that is unique to that band.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like Scott, you touched on there just a second ago, that permeates every single part of your business. And this is something that we harp on quite a bit on this show, is to make sure that artists understand that every single thing that they do on and off the stage is part and parcel of their entire brand and everything that they are selling. And so, like you said, if you show up late, if you mouth off to a club owner or booking guy or whatever, you're tarnishing your reputation, your brand. And so make sure that every single part of it is completely wire-tight from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to sleep. Now, what are some of the most important parts for artists to examine in their brand right off the bat? Say, if you had to look at big chunks of their business, what do you think folks should focus on first? Is it more, their logo, their merch? Is it communication with the fans, their social media campaigns? What do you think they should focus on first, and how should they go about attacking that?
Yeah, well, I think like anything, and this would be similar with companies as well, you need to kind of have a planning session where you get the members of the group together and say, I know what we all individually kind of stand for and that kind of thing, but what as a group is this band going to stand for? And people say, oh, that sounds really stupid, for a band to sit and do that. But if you're in a communications job and you try to do it without, agreement between the folks in the band, then each one of you could be saying a different thing. And that's not going to be good. That's not going to be good for your kind of synergy as a group. So even though it sounds a little bit like, getting together in the clubhouse and that kind of thing. I think it's worth it. When I start with a new client, we sit down together and we do a planning session, and we say, okay, let's say it's an amplifier company, for example, and we say this amplifier is going to appeal to, obviously it's going to appeal to musicians, but what kind of musicians? Why? What are the, where's the fit? And then we figure out what the brand center is going to be in terms of the emotion, what the core of the brand's going to be, and we figure out what the key messages are going to be. So if you're going to take on the communications role, for a band, or even for an individual artist, then I think it's definitely worth it to sit down and have that strategic planning talk, with the members of the group, and then write it down. Write down, how are we positioning ourselves, that kind of thing. And who is this going to be a band for? It's very important.
And so when it comes to key messages, what do you recommend for artists? Should there be a primary statement about the artist, as in we stand for this, and possibly a secondary message, or how should they go about approaching that?
Sure, absolutely. Well, people are very distracted today, so they probably don't have room for more than like 3 messages, but I would condense it down to 1. I would get it down to, what is the one message, that is going to differentiate this band? The hardest thing I think with bands is differentiation, right? Everybody wants to be different, but yet we all have influences. One of the questions that I play in a little cover band, and we play little sports bars and stuff like that. And people say, who are your influences? Everybody has influences, and everybody up the chain, to the biggest artists you can name, they have a long list of influences. However, they want to have their own unique sound too, right? So I think there's always that sort of element that, we're influenced by, and that's a great thing and everything. But, how are we going to, what's going to be different about us, and why should people care?
Because we just rock, man. That's why you should listen. We're
right.
Burning down the hotel room. But in all seriousness, I think that, I know that when I talk to a lot of bands and I ask them that kind of question, what sets you apart, you always get at least I do, I seem to get always a very generic statement. We want to change the world. We want to bring back X. Would you recommend that they be much more specific or more general in what it is that they're trying to represent, stand for, what their primary message is?
I would recommend being specific in that case. I think and I think a lot of it comes from is when you ask them the question. Not a lot of bands, we drill for hours on, the bridge of this song, but not a lot of bands sit down together and discuss kind of the communications plan. And usually it's assigned to one of the band members who didn't duck fast enough. It's like, you didn't show up to band practice, drummer. You get to communicate. You're the communications person.
The drummer not showing up for band practice. I'm just not buying that.
Exactly. Maybe
it was the lead. You must be lying right there.
Exactly. Maybe it was the front. Maybe it was the lead singer this time. We don't know. But
I can't really knock any of the instrumentalists because I've been in a band on every single instrument. So if I knock a drummer, I am a drummer. If I knock the singer, I am the singer. So I'm not saying I'm always good. I'm just saying I've been in those spots. So
drummer's always the easy target. I gotta say, but drummer's always like, yeah, whatever. I'll just be back here beating stuff. It's gonna be fun. But I would definitely say just take the opportunity to sit down and think about what and have a conversation about communications for the band. Not a lot of bands do it. Here's one that'll knock you back. Not a lot of companies do it. Companies come to me and they're in such a huge hurry to communicate and get something out there that they forget to talk and think about what it is that they're putting out there. Which seems
that actually surprises me, given the sometimes millions or tens of millions of dollars behind that.
Man, I'll tell you, it's people are very excited in communications to get to the tactics. It's like they just cannot wait to get a tweet out, or something out, and it's like. I think that's one of the biggest great misunderstandings about communication is that it's not about executing a to-do list of junk you got to do to communicate. It's about what are you communicating and what is the most effective way to get that message out. And that is worth a conversation. It is absolutely worth sitting down with the band and going, hey guys, before we go over the songs for the 100,000th time here, how about we have a little conversation about the brand of the band? It could be a fun conversation. I'd recommend doing it sober. I'm just going to throw it out there.
I would recommend doing anything important sober. And after you have that conversation, go get wasto if you want to. But anytime you're talking business, my advice is always do it with a clear head.
I would say.
It's just a good rule of thumb there.
It's a good rule of thumb, And I say it to my clients, too. I said, if we're going to do this strategy session, be sober about it. Just no. Most of them are sober most of the time.
I've met a lot of doctors and attorneys. It's not just the musicians partying. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Out there. But I would say it's worth that conversation, and I don't think enough people do it. And that's why when you ask them the question, Paul, and you say, what makes you stand out? It's the answer they're giving you is in real time, and it's the first time they've ever thought of it, right there in the moment. And that's why the answer sucks, because, nobody's going to come up with that stuff, great. So if you want to have an answer that is real, you need to sit down and put some time into this stuff. Communications doesn't happen naturally. It is a process by which you sit down and go, okay, now, we're in the, we're crafting arrows, and now we're going to talk about how to shoot our arrows and that kind of thing. So I would spend time crafting.
I completely agree. And when we come back from the break here, I want to basically circle back around to that sentiment and talk a little bit about why bands should be excited to have that conversation about branding. I've got something interesting I want to get your thoughts on here. Cool. But right now, we're going to go pay a couple of bills here on Intertalk Radio. We are talking with Mr. Scott Robertson, the absolute branding and marketing guru. Paul Nicholas here on a beautiful Tuesday afternoon, and we're going to pay a couple of bills and come right back. So you guys stick around in the next segment. Again, we're going to loop back to branding, why you should be excited about it. Get your pen and paper out. Throw down that bottle of Jack Daniels, pick up that glass of water, and come back with a clear head, and we're going to be right back. Stick around.
Right on.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
This is going to get loud. the working musician's ultimate guide to striking a new path through today's music industry. With your host, Paul Nicholas.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We've got Mr. Scott Robertson here from May the Best Brand Win, the preeminent radio talk show host here at EnterTalk Radio. Scott, thanks again for being on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Having fun so far. We're doing good.
Indeed. I was going to just circle back on one of the from a couple of points from the last segment, and I was going to talk to the artists out there and say, hey, look, I know that a lot of the things that we're talking about here, you might be rolling your eyes and saying, oh, it's business. I just want to get back to jamming, crank up the amp to 11 until the knob falls off. But this is the most important stuff that you guys can do. I mean, if you really want people to hear that amazing song that you wrote, that amazing record that you poured all your heart, soul, and all your funds into, you have to get every aspect of your business wire tight. The brand encompasses everything, so take a lot of notes. Now, if you think that that's silly and that you're just going to write that hit song and you're going to become, badass living in that $15 million mansion in Malibu, consider this. There's a lot of acts out there, you guys know lots of them, that put the music second and their message was first. Think about all those artists out there that came out with a message first, and the music was very, very much secondary. One band that you could say that about would be Rage Against the Machine. Yeah, they've got great tunes, but their message and their brand was what really drove them. Those political statements, all those things encapsulated that. So the point is that it's such a potent thing that can drive the music. So don't just slack off on these kinds of things. So, Scott, let me ask you this. Because, a lot of the artists that may be listening are just getting started. They might just be putting together some members. Maybe they're touring guys that are getting ready to start on bands 2 or 3. But when is it important for them to start that conversation about their brand and how they're communicating that?
As early as possible. It's it's like building a house. The stuff we're talking about is the foundational stuff. And I find a lot of not just bands, but a lot of big companies, they already are moving to put the sun deck on it, and there's no foundation, there's no house, there's nothing to support it, and it just comes crashing down. And it's really important. There is a sequence to doing this stuff right, and sequence. What we talked about in the first segment. Sitting down, having that sort of talk about who are we, how are we positioning ourselves, in the marketplace. That's not an inappropriate conversation to have early on. Absolutely, because then you can build on it, and then your communications program actually kind of means something, as opposed to just being, hey, we got a show on Friday night kind of thing, which everybody does. Everybody's got a show on Friday night, just so you know.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. If not, you guys aren't using Showslinger. That's all I'm saying.
That's right. I've got a show on Friday night, so it's like everybody's got a show on Friday night. So, but it's like, what's that show, going to be? So it's really important.
Yeah. And so when these folks are starting this conversation, I know that everybody thinks they know who their fan base is, but what would you say to those people to help them really identify and dial it into who their fan base is and what they really care about? Can you talk a little bit about how to address those things and how to dial in that message? Because, everyone says, oh, my music appeals to a wide range of people, this, that, and the other. But that's not necessarily the best thing. You need to be specific so you can reach these people, don't you think?
I do think so, yeah. And I think that, sometimes the marketplace will just tell you. You are putting things out there. You're, first of all, you need to have your core group of fans. And then you need to, and then those folks will kind of tell a friend and tell a friend and tell a friend. I mean, every major success story, in communication kind of begins with a bit of supercharged word of mouth, and that's absolutely true for bands. I think, you go out and you play a great show, and you have, 2 or 3 folks that say, oh my God, I want to know when you guys are playing the next time. I want to come in a little closer and learn a little more about the band and that kind of thing. And do you guys have and some people, go a little further on that roller coaster ride, and they say, "Hey, I want to know if you guys have any merchandise, and you have an album coming out, you have all those kind of things," and then you kind of want to do what Seth Godin, who's a marketing guru, great stuff that Seth always says, and very applicable to bands and artists as well, is kind of the idea of growing the tribe. Everybody kind of has a tribe of folks that are following them, and they're the people that you're coming to your shows. They're waiting for those tickets. They're subscribing to your newsletter, that kind of thing. And then you just want to systematically start to grow that. You want to start to enlist that. The best way to grow it is make sure you talk to the people who already like you, and make sure that they're telling their friends. Yeah, and that's a great way to start to naturally, organically start to grow things.
Indeed. And so let me ask you this. When they're having that first conversation, what would you identify as the major areas of the artist's business to identify and then work on separately? Because I would imagine, you've got your appearance, you've got...
Yeah. You cut out on me there, buddy.
Including tangibles, artist business, and what should they focus on first?
Let's see. Focus on first. So, I lost a little bit of your question because you kind of cut out on me there, but I got the end of it. So I think, are you still there with me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, cool. All right. I would, that's a tougher question. So, I wouldn't say that you need to make everything that the band does like, a contrived kind of thing in order to get fans. I mean, there's definitely a delicate balance here that you will attract fans just being great, just doing what you're doing. But then what you want to do is make sure your communications is supporting that and allowing you to grow, and what I was talking about earlier, kind of make sure that your biggest fans are telling their friends is a great kind of organic way to grow it. But, your fans will give you feedback too. We really like this. We love this song. We didn't like this ballad. We don't think you should do this, that kind of thing. Fans will tell you. And it always is a balance, I think, between, an artist, unlike, a commercial product, which can kind of listen and respond to the market and that kind of thing. You never can forget that with the band and an artist, you're doing something that is almost, kind of transcends the market a bit in the sense that you're doing it for you first, and then trying to bring along whoever is going to come along and that kind of thing. And I don't think you want to lose that. I think if you're a great artist out there, you want to make sure that you have, you have that authenticity, because, we've all seen the stories of, bands that were put together and sort of created by a marketing machine. And, I don't think anybody wants to necessarily be that. We kind of live here in 2017. We live in a world that kind of has thirsted a long time for real, for things that are real, and sort of the spin of the past is sort of left in the past. And people are very sensitive to it and can sort of see through it these days. So I would definitely say, just because you're sitting down and talking about, who are we as a band and that kind of thing, that doesn't mean that you're trying to create a contrived product that is going to, make money and that kind of thing, because that's not why most artists I know that play music, the financial side of it is secondary. It's important because you need to be able to, you need to be able to meet your expenses and everything that we do costs money and those kind of things. But it's not the fundamental reason why you would do this, because if it was, then there's a lot easier ways to just make money. There's a hell of a lot easier ways to make money than this.
You're telling me music isn't the easiest way to make money in the world? I mean, working 90 hours a week to not get paid and then get stiffed by the club owner, that's not easy? Or?
Yeah, but we love it, right? Somebody asked me the other day that said, you do all this stuff and marketing stuff and you're still out here, in some crummy sports bar, it's why. And it's like, because I love it, because I love to play.
That's what the regular people out there in the world don't understand, is that it's I guess some people say it's like loving somebody else or loving something. It's not really a choice in this capacity. It's music is part of who you are. You're not going to just separate yourself from it. It's an inherent internal drive that you cannot turn on, you cannot turn off. So
I like it. It's like a pharmaceutical.
Yeah, except you don't have to pay for it and you're not hungover the next morning. So
and it doesn't have that long list of side effects at the end of pharmaceutical commercials. It's like, hey, if you
might cause death, rapid heartbeat, you're going to die if you take this.
Shortness
Indeed.
of breath, and shortness of life, and bleeding from the ears and bleeding from all your various sockets. I'll tell you as an aside, pharmaceutical marketing is just hysterically funny to me, because it's like they put these ads out there for a condition that you weren't even sure really exists, and then the side effects list, the side effects list goes
it's worse
on.
than the original
oh my god, and the side effects are a horror show, an absolute. It's like, I don't know what the condition was, but there's not a chance in hell that I'm signing up for that if the side effects could come true. There was
one I saw. It was a
go ahead.
bizarre thing, probably exactly what you were going to say, but it was like one of these extraordinarily rare conditions. It's like a benign skin rash or something, and it's like may cause drowsiness, dehydration. And the last one they slipped right in there before the commercial cut out was sudden death. Sudden death. I'm like, how do you even get that on TV in front of millions of people and think you're going to slip that one by?
Sudden death, but your skin is never, as a corpse, your skin will never look better.
Yeah, no, that may be a marketing
viewing
thing for the metal bands out there. Listening to our music may cause sudden death, and that may be a cool thing for some of the hardcore bands out there. I don't know, but do what's right for you, I suppose.
There's good branding, and there's you want to see branding used incorrectly, is that every pharmaceutical has some made up goofy ass name that they created in a laboratory somewhere. Yeah, exactly. And that's because if they gave you the actual chemical name of the compound, you'd run away screaming, because first of all, it has like 18 syllables in it, and it's the scariest thing ever. But if they market it under Zoloft or some crazy marketing name, my profession, marketing and branding, not always the most forthright individuals you're ever going to run into in your life, right? There's a lot of people out there using the power for the forces of evil. You know what I mean? I talk about that on my show a lot, and pharmaceutical marketing is a case study in just trying to pull a fast one on people. Honestly, that's what it is.
Well, we definitely don't like that here. But you raise an important point about the pharmaceutical drug names and how they create these cheery, simple names. Now, but there's an important lesson there. If you're a band, I know we all want to have this crazy, awesome name, but simple is better. Make your band name something short, sweet, people can pronounce. Something that looks good on a marquee, something that looks good on a flyer. If it's so damn long, there was one band that was in Showslinger. They contacted one of our reps and was saying, "Yeah, we'd like to play at XYZ." And I kid you not, their name had to have 9 or 10 words in it. It was so damn long that when you look at when you're browsing for this artist in Showslinger, the name doesn't even fit on there. And I was like, dude, we are not presenting this to a venue unless you either change the name, shorten it, or whatever, but we're not doing it. Well, yeah, man, but we're so unique. We pack the house out. I said, don't care. It's not going to look good on a marquee. It's not going to look good it's not even going to fit on a flyer.
There you go. You got to think it through. I mean, I put that firmly in the, be creative, but then, let's think it through, and let's have some practicality to it, because it does have to work within the system a bit.
Yeah, and I think one interesting metaphor, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the ultimate guru, but the artists out there, you can think of it, here's a musical metaphor for you. All of this brand is the amplifier. It's not going to change what's coming out of the axe too much unless you turn up that distortion. But you can either use it right to distort the sound that you got, or it can be very clear and clean and cut through. But it's not going to change fundamentally who you are. It's just going to amplify what it is that you're doing, who you are, and all that kind of thing. Do you think that's fair to say?
Absolutely fair to say. And I use that as an example with some of my clients too. I say, that's absolutely true. all of this communication stuff that we do just kind of makes it louder, But if another good reason for that
makes sense.
There you go. But another good reason for having the message in tune, as I always say, is, if you have a guitar that's not in tune and you run it through this sound system at Wembley Stadium, you got a really, really super loud, out of tune guitar that sounds like crap. And it's like the sound system can't make it better unless you go back and tune that thing. There's no excuse for being.
It's got to be done right first before you amplify it.
Very true. Very true.
I think that's a really good metaphor. I'm going to have to use that for other artists that we talk to. Now, what kind of resource? I mean, are there any resources that you can recommend for these guys online to get started? Any sites, any literature, any place that these guys can educate themselves a little bit?
Yeah, one of my favorite comes from New Bay Media over at the DIY Advisor column that comes out from Electronic Musician, and they run it in a few other of the New Bay publications. They do Guitar Player, Guitar World, almost every musician enthusiast magazine is sort of controlled by New Bay Media, but I love the DIY Advisor, do-it-yourself advisor column. It's always packed through with good stuff. I would highly recommend that you subscribe to that feed and make sure that is on your list, because they talk about a lot of really important stuff for bands and artists, and it's very specific and just always great advice. Good stuff.
And so, real quickly, and then we're going to take a quick break. What kind of budget should these guys be setting aside for what they're doing? Or we can address this when we come back if that's a really long one.
Yeah, we can talk budget. You've got what you've got. So I would definitely say, there's not a minimum budget that it requires, to be involved in marketing. As I mentioned, some of the best marketing and most authentic marketing is your, word of mouth, just playing great shows, bands coming out and playing great shows. I say that to my other clients too. And I mean, it's a metaphor for, deliver great products to the market. I say, all you can do is deliver a fantastic performance, and that's free, so.
Yeah. And that's free. And the best part is, one, it's free, but two, make sure when you deliver that product, you deliver it the best that you can, which means having your game face on and not being whacked out on God knows what controlled substance. That is your product. So make it as best you can. So it's going to get loud in the next segment. Mr. Scott Robertson here. Thanks for sticking around. We're going to talk more about branding when we get back. So we'll see you then, folks.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas, and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now, with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording, and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
This is going to get loud. The working musician's ultimate guide to striking a new path through today's music industry. With your host, Paul Nicholas.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Paul Nicholas here. We've got Mr. Scott Robertson from May the Best Brand Win. Scott, in the last segment we were talking a lot about more specifics of branding and some concrete steps that these guys can take. And we were ending right there with budgets and all that kind of thing. We were talking about how the best thing that you can do is free, and that's put on a tremendous show. Now, say you're just starting to get some traction. You're starting to put on a little bit of a tour, or you're about to go out on tour, and you've got maybe $200, $300, $400, $500, maybe $1,000, maybe $2,000, whatever it is. If you have a little bit of money set aside, where would you recommend these people place it from a branding perspective? Is it fine-tuning their merch? Is it hiring a pro graphic designer to make sure that all the visual elements are cohesive? Is it tricking out their website? I know that's a broad question, but what do you recommend for the folks that are getting started? Where are they going to get the most bang for the buck from a branding perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I definitely, it also depends on the skill set in the band, right? I mean, if you have, if your drummer is also an awesome web designer, man, you're ahead of the game. So I would definitely say, when you're having that meeting about who we are and that kind of thing, that's also a good time to start talking about what other skills do people bring to the table. Who's got a lot of followers on Twitter, that kind of thing, and who knows how to use, social media really well, because obviously the job, whether it's going to be one person in the band or it's going to be a, sort of teamwork, the whole band's really responsible for that. So I would, but to your specific question, let's say, you've got a few, $100, I definitely think that the website is important, especially for an original artist, that's going out there, because you need a place, gone are the days where, record labels are going to take you under their wing and say, hey, don't worry about it, kid. We're going to, put it on our website, and we're going to, it's like, you got to do it. You got to do it yourself. So you're going to have to replicate the job that those old record labels used to do. And you're going to need to have, a good website that has, lots of videos, lots of, audio samples, of your band. I'm a huge fan. So public relations is my favorite go-to-market weapon. One of the reasons I say that is because almost any time an organization is telling you something directly, it's sort of almost assumed that they're lying. For when it comes to businesses, less than 1 out of 10 people trust anything a business says. I don't have specific figures on a band. Probably a little higher because you're already, in some way, shape, or form following you, and you've already got some authenticity. But we still trust the press. And
although that trust is being eroded quite quickly, do you see that lasting?
Especially
that's not a joke. That's a legitimate question.
Yeah, more political press. The political news is very polarizing these days. But for our mainstream media, the folks that cover bands and stuff like that, we still believe what we hear. Music critics. People believe what music critics say. And so I think that investing in your press relationships is really smart. Because you need some third parties out there who reach a lot of people, saying how great you guys are, saying, and you need to win people over, in the press. And so I would say, maybe spend that money, working with a publicist or somebody that's in, that just graduated in college and would take that on as an account, for publicity. That could be strong. You'll never find
now, somebody like a journalism major or something like that, or where can they go out and find these types of folks?
Yeah, for something like $500 or things, most agencies wouldn't necessarily take that on, but you probably have to find some independent practitioners that'll freelance for you, that kind of thing. So I would just look around, in your market as to who's publishing good content too, and see if you can't hire them to help amplify your message a bit. That can be really a useful way to do it. But technically, earned media is just that. It's free. It's earned media. So let's say you're in Orange County, California, where I am, and you talk to one of the music critics about coming to see one of your shows, and they write a positive review of that. That's a good time also to support that. That story's coming out. You support that with an ad about your latest album, in that same issue. And then you work with that. That could be a good way to support your public relations. And then it's
now when you say support that with an ad, you mean spend money on an ad.
I do, yeah. That's where you would spend that money for the.
That's important to note as an artist, because I think that might have just slipped by them. But basically, they're scratching your back, you scratch theirs.
Yep, it is that. It's that kind of world, and I think that is a good role for advertising. I'm not a big fan of advertising in terms of building credibility and authenticity and those kind of things, because I think that where we stand right now, we have most people just don't believe advertising very much, and you need that third party credibility piece. But then if you have a supporting piece along with it, in terms of an ad, then yeah, you're kind of building a better message foundation in a magazine like that. And I would definitely say, educate yourself about the people who are writing about music in your town and get to know them. Follow them on Twitter. It is so easy to follow journalists now. They love it. You love it. Follow them on Twitter. See what they're writing about, and you don't have to be a world-class public relations person to get a story placed. All you have to have is a good story and get it to the reporter. And then you have to, of course, you got to provide access, which is really important.
Yeah, and so one of the things that I would throw in there, and like we talked about last week with the guys from Orange about corporate sponsorships, and they were saying how bands don't really reach out to them or really kind of stroke them at the shows and that kind of thing. But like you were saying, get to know your local writers. But look, especially if they're just in there writing about the local music, they're in the music section, they're always going out to shows. These guys got into that for a reason. They love being around bands. They like being backstage. They like feeling special. So make them feel like a damn rock star. Make them feel like you when they show up. Get them the drinks, have the cute girls come over and talk to them, whatever it takes. Make them feel special so they want to write about what an amazing experience they had. Don't try and be all, we're too big for this guy and he should be lucky to write about us. Bullshit. Yeah. Make sure that you treat them like a star.
Yeah, and if they get it wrong, if they don't like one of the biggest mistakes I think you can make is if a critic, there's all kinds of critics in the world, right? If you played a show, you had an off night or a different night, and they wrote a bad review, don't burn that bridge. Reach out to that person and say, hey, we appreciate you taking the time to cover our band. We wish it would have turned out a little differently, of course, but hey, we're going to invite you to the next show and that kind of thing. And, you got to have a thick skin to be an artist, and a band in this world. And I would definitely say that's important with the press. And you see all kinds of people that the press sort of owe it to you to write a positive article. That's not the case.
No, they don't. I mean, have you picked up the paper?
Exactly. But don't forget, bad news sells, and I always, when it comes to reviews, I always direct my clients to a great source of wisdom, which is called RottenTomatoes.com. It reviews movies, and whatever movie you can find, you're going to find some degree, like you're going to find like 5 to 10% of people at least that thought it was a complete, it was a terrible movie. It was a horror movie. So, you're not going to please everybody. You're not going to please everybody, all the time, and don't ever have that expectation that you're gonna do that. My clients that do have that expectation, we have a little session where we review movies and Rotten Tomatoes together until I can beat that out of them, and I say, look, this is the world you live in. Not everybody agrees, and that's okay. The first thing that's got to be okay with you is the fact that if not everybody agrees with you, they're entitled to their opinion. And you move on, and you try to, like we talked about Seth Godin earlier, you try to gather the people that you can gather to your tribe, and the people that say, "Oh, I'm never going to be a part of that tribe." It's like, well, maybe you won't. Maybe you won't. Maybe that's okay. And that's important.
Yeah, and one thing that I would really add to that's very important is that the people that are doing, Rotten Tomatoes and that kind of stuff, they're random consumers. The people that show up at your shows to review it, to write an article, they didn't show up to waste their time, and they sure as shit didn't show up to cut you down or this or that. They got in because they love music. They're passionate about helping artists. So they're I would say they're predisposed to doing a good review, but that sure doesn't mean you're going to get one. You got to stack the deck in your favor, and that means being rehearsed, showing up on time. Tip the sound guy, bribe the sound guy to make sure you get that extra love, that extra shine. If there's a lighting guy, tip that guy. Make sure you do whatever it is that's humanly frickin' possible to make sure that you have the best show that you can. Hell, give out free merch to whoever to get people up at the front of the stage wearing your shirts and screaming out the names to your song. But the point is that they're not showing up to write a bad article, but that still means – that doesn't mean you don't have to work. You got to earn that positive review. Now, the one thing – that I would say too is that, and I always fall back on my sales experience. I mean, yeah, I've been a musician and tours and, all that stuff, but I was in sales for a long time. When you're on stage, you're in sales. And so, you have to convert the people that are negative. Because like you said, everyone's going to have an opinion, and some people just aren't going to like the cut of your jib, and that's okay. If someone gives you a bad review, like you said, don't scream and piss and moan and put on a negative face and, shout it out over social media. Like you said, contact that guy, try and convert him. Hey, thanks for coming out to our show. What could we have done better? I know you said that Oh, well, did you know that the bass player had the flu that night, and that's why he was We'd like you to come back out. The point I'm trying to make is that when someone gives you a negative review in life, in music, in anything, when you convert that negative person into a positive person, they are going to be the strongest proponent of your brand on the entire face of the planet. It's much more potent than taking someone who already loved you. That negative person, man, I didn't really like that band. I'll tell you what, though. They invited me back, and, man, these guys worked hard. I have so much respect for that. They didn't just blah, blah, blah. See every negative as a positive, and you can turn that into somebody that can help amplify your brand.
Absolutely. I love to use the press for any level of client that I'm working with. Working with the press is very, very, very important because it brings you the one element that nothing else in the marketing spectrum can, and that is credibility. Credibility, authenticity. It brings you a third-party validation of what you're doing. And so I would always encourage, bands to get to know that, very, very well, and make sure that you are spending a good amount of time, dealing with the PR side of things. Very important for the brand as it grows.
And so talking about authenticity and credibility, where would you advise those guys that are just getting started out? They don't know a whole hell of a lot about the music industry, but where do they go to find the most credible writers in their town? Is it going to be people that are more at the the college level? Is it going to be the local writers? Because I know a lot of people in bands, they want to shoot for the stars, thinking that more is more. But it's not like you're going to approach the New York Times art section and they're going to do a write up about your Madison Square Garden gig, right?
No.
Where can these guys focus on a local level to find that credibility and start building that?
Yeah, absolutely. This just comes from to be great at marketing, you have to be good at listening. And listening today is about knowing how to navigate through social media and listen. Twitter is built as an open architecture, which means that anybody that's talking about your town or your band name or anything like that, you can find it. It has no walls around it. So if all you need to do is be able to go into Twitter and use the search, and look, and then, I think it's pretty easy today because all you do is just look who's writing about bands in your town, but a very basic Google search would turn that up. And then you just find out who are those writers. You look at the bylines on those writers, look at them, see if you can find their Twitter handles, follow them, start looking at what they're saying, what they're doing. And then when the time is right, you don't want to be a stalker about the whole thing, but when the time is right, you reach out. You send them a direct message. You say, would you like to maybe follow our band's page, and that kind of thing. And then, and sometimes they'll follow your page, and sometimes, if they're doing their job right, and you're a local band up and comer in their market, they'll reach out to you, and they'll say, hey, I started following your page, and I just want to let you know I'm doing this. So that's their job. They are looking for the latest artists that are out there. So I would definitely say, one of the most important thing about marketing communications is the listening, and listening today involves, searching the social media, search your social networks, obviously do a nice Google search and start to, build that list of reporters, which you guys can have relationships with out there. And then when the time is right, bring them to a show and get that awesome review.
And be very careful, artists out there. Everybody is just shouting about their band and their record. Don't do that. When you approach these folks, be real. Don't shoot a tweet or a text or an email saying, check out my band, and then here's my Facebook page. That's a surefire way to look like an idiot. Just be real. Be nice. Yeah. Be authentic. Don't act like you're king shit. Just, hey, I noticed that you write about local bands. Like Scott said, we're doing this. Can I invite you out to a show and, buy you a drink afterwards? I think you love the music that we're doing. So Excellent. Be real. Scott Robertson, thank you so much for being on the show today. We'll definitely have to have you back again down the line, but don't forget to check out Scott's show, May the Best Brand Win. This guy is the guru on marketing, branding, everything PR, so check it out. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you next week.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.